call again, please?
I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Sure.
I forgot to click that button for that one. I ran out to get my notebook. Okay. Sorry, Cliff. Robert Carnahan.
Here.
John Foreman.
Present.
Julie Rivera. Here. Ralph Miller.
Present.
Randy Niemeyer.
Present.
Colleen Sheehan is absent. Richard Sharp.
Here.
I am present. Rick Eberly.
Present.
David Austin.
Present.
Under new business, approval of the minutes from March 16th, 2021. Do we have a motion to accept and waive the reading of those minutes? So moved. First, motion by Ralph,
I'll second.
second by Julie. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. The second, number one, Nice Engineering, proposal for professional engineering services regarding the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor, Project 2.
I do like that. We have two number ones.
Yeah, that
Very
was good.
Ray. The second number one is beautiful.
Neil, do you want to just briefly, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
In my mind, we're all number one.
Of course. Well, I had him do it because you always need to be number one.
If it's okay, I'll go through not only the second number one, but where we're at with the first two items on the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor.
That's a great idea, thank you.
And we can provide the update on a letter I. Project 1 is ready to bid, and we'll be looking for that in the fall, coordinating with town staff and town attorney, updating the item permit. Item number 2, the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project 2. As noted above in item 1, we have the routing complete, and we're working forward to prepare the easement documents. For the East Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor, what we reviewed at the last meeting was proposing to bid that out in coordination with Highland, who has a very similar program. They ended up extending at their last meeting the 2020 contract that they had with their specialized contractor on that. And I spoke with Dave, and I'd like to work through his office on this item, as it's a specialized professional service, and we're going to send this out to several suppliers with very consistent set of plans, specifications, requests for proposals, and view this as not necessarily a contractor that you would have put in a culvert, but a very specialized item for lining of those sewers on the East Side Interceptor that are tributary to Lift Station 3.
Sounds good. Is that good, Dave? Is that you?
It is.
Corby.
Neil and I did talk with the indicated, and there's a very narrow exception in the statutes about specialized services,
Uh-huh.
and that's exactly what this is. So-
Okay, okay.
But it will have a process that is somewhat request for proposal. There'll be
Yeah.
some apples comparison
Okay,
based
okay.
on the solicitation that ends up being made.
Okay. That sounds great to me. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Real good.
It'll actually expedite this
It
process.
sounds like it probably will.
It will,
Yeah.
and we'll be ready to send those out in the next few weeks, and we will coordinate that through Dave's office if your guys are comfortable with that.
Very much so.
Next item, the SSES, we're waiting on videos for those items from Public Works, and I know they are working forward on that, so hopefully we'll have a meeting, an update at the next meeting or after that.
Okay.
The Utopia item 5, subdivision water main, we are proceeding, and again, we're coordinating with Public Works and the water and the wastewater department to get some vector locates on specific areas that we weren't able to determine based on the Emmy Simpson report that we discussed at the February meeting.
Okay.
And we'll be ready to bid that in the fall of 2021, consistent with what we have in terms of our rate case that was approved with the IURC.
Okay.
And the last item, item 6, was the risk and resilience
Yes.
study. And we've been moving forward on that, coordinating with town staff, and we'll be prepared to submit that on time, consistent with the EPA requirements for another, unfortunately, unfunded mandate. But there will be some recommendations that come out of that for increasing plant operational security that will come back to you
Okay.
from your staff and Director of Operations. Related to the initial item for Project 2 of the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor, what we have for you is a very similar design process to what we had for the concept back in 2016 of the feasibility report for the West Side Sanitary and Sewer Interceptor, and then a continuation of the Project 2 routing analysis that we delivered at the last month's meeting. And at that time, we have proceeded with the continuation and completion of the survey work needed to acquire easement documentation and deliver that to town staff and to your attorney to continue that acquisition process, title search, title work, and move forward on acquiring those easements as, if you look at page 2 of the proposal, the first main paragraph is, that is a priority item, and prior to any continuation of additional design work, we need to complete that acquisition work due to other pending items that are outside of your control, from other governmental agencies that we may or may not need to coordinate with. So, I've spoken with Dave several times over the past few weeks, and we're preparing that, and his staff is ready upon receipt of the preparation of those easement documents to move forward on those acquisitions, similarly to what we had on Project 1 with the 3 large property owners on that project. In this case, there's several more property owners, but
there's more, yeah.
yeah, exactly. They're smaller in scope, but they're larger in numbers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we are proceeding on that item, coordinating with Dave, and we'll make sure that town staff and Jen and Rick have those items as well, as we have those preparations made and have them submitted for your consideration.
Very nice. Dave?
Given impending legislation, this is going to be a very compressed project. Once Neil and his team get us the data on the routing, parcels in the routing, title work, appraisals, and offers in that sequence will need to occur. We're going to be really, really, really hard pressed to bump up into year end,
Yeah,
given
Yeah.
that we're bumping up against May
Yeah.
right now. So there'll be a flurry going on.
okay.
It'll be an important report from us to do every month.
Very good, absolutely.
Keep it rolling.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
imperative.
Dave and Neil both
That's-
are right about the legislation that's coming down is by the end of this year, December 31st of 2021, for these sorts of utility projects that involve going through unincorporated areas. We will not be able to use the tool of eminent domain unless the county commissioners now check off on it. So, which will create an entirely new set of rules to follow and expenses to incur. So moving forward on this project is necessary. The one question I have, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
yes,
is
absolutely.
I notice you have a not to exceed of $102,350. With a price of that size, is this something that we need to put out to bid? We don't need to seek proposals? Okay.
May, if you choose to.
Well, I'm just wondering,
You're not required by law.
Okay.
So,
the statutes seem to change every year that govern what we can and can't do. So,
I'm not ready to give an opinion on land
Okay.
acquisition.
For clarity, Randy, on a percentage basis, this is about 10 to 12% less in terms of length than we had on Project 1. And I think part of that is due to the fact we don't have to deal with the issues of acquiring the CSX railroad right away, which was incredibly cumbersome. And that's where we were able to find that value to the ratepayers in terms of that amount.
Good.
Okay,
Mr. President?
yes, yes.
I've also concluded that the commissioners will have more time on their hands now that they're not.
They're not doing, yes, they will. They'll have a lot more time on their hands, won't they? Yes. Good point, Dave.
If they sit with that decision.
yeah, so the ironic part of this is IDEM mandates that we have more joint ventures as it relates to sewers. Whenever you have two municipalities that share a sewer, unless they're contiguous one another, there's going to be encroachment on unincorporated areas. So with this law that they're making their own mandate through IDEM more difficult to uphold through this process.
Well, items
The
can have
insanity's
more time.
crazy.
Randy, items can have more time in their hands too. given the wetland jurisdiction.
Oh, yeah, that's
taken away
a good
from
point.
It's
Good
almost
point, Dave,
like
yeah.
government only exists for bureaucracies
That's-
at this
that's-
point.
That seems to be.
That's what we're there for, support
Yes,
bureaucracies.
Dave.
I do have a substantive question for Neil.
Okay,
The routing for phase two leads obviously to phase three. We do not get to the municipal boundaries with a phase two, acquisition, or routing acquisition, correct?
We get to the town-owned parcel on 155th. And the
Okay.
intention is to utilize that parcel, I believe it's 110 acres.
114.
okay.
Correct. As much as possible to minimize, those areas that are outside corporate limits, because just slightly south of 151st, is where that parcel that's contiguous with 155th comes out to Parish Avenue. So yes, the amount will be there, but it'll be significantly reduced with the anticipation for Project 3 at some point down the road, using that town-owned parcel, to the best of our abilities.
So as long as we can get to the
Cool.
municipal boundaries, we're gonna be unencumbered.
Okay,
Absolutely correct, yeah.
okay,
That's
okay,
right.
That's perfect.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Neil. Anybody have any additional questions for Neil?
No, sir.
If we could have a motion to accept the proposal from Nice Engineering for professional engineering services for the West Side Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project 2, not to exceed $102,350 and a schedule of 210 calendar days.
So moved based on the reading that you just mentioned,
Thank you, John.
to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second by Julie. Roll call, please.
Robert
Yep.
Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera? Yes. Randy Niemeyer?
Yes,
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks again, Neil.
Thank you. We will not only continue, but already continuing on, those items with the, respect to the easement acquisition, and, we'll move forward from there.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Very good, thank you. The actual number 2, we go to our written report from our clerk treasurer, Jennifer.
Board members, I previously sent you all the updated cash balances and the expenditure report. At this time, I don't really have any updates for you, but I did want to make you all aware that my staff is moving forward with the lien process this year. We paused on that last year during the height of the pandemic and everything, but now that things are starting to go back to somewhat normal, we have been reviewing the accounts and the balances, and we are moving forward with our prior processes.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Any questions for Jennifer? Moving to 3B, Director of Operations and Maintenance Report, Mr. Kubiak. You need a walker, or what happened?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I guess I got a couple updates on lift station 5. We actually have it in the ground and, it's proceeding,
Wow.
as well
Yeah.
as can be expected. We gotta get new electric over there and, we ended up having to pour a concrete retaining wall along the creek because of the level of the new lift station had to be 2 foot above the flood elevation,
Oh.
so it's sticking out of the ground a little bit. That's progressing well. We finally got the water main in down the alleyway over there behind the old King building where we get water to that building, so that's installed. It's still gotta be hooked up, the final connection, but it's just.
How
about
deep was
finished.
it?
5 feet,
Oh, okay.
so, but it's all replaced, the old pipe, we got new pipe in and everything is all changed out. The only thing they gotta do is switch out or just actually connect the new line to the actual service line. So
Awesome.
that's almost done. They just about got the west side, they got probably 3/4 of the west side hydrants all flushed out for the season already in this spring, so that's going good. And then, hopefully for the next utility board meeting, we're gonna have a ordinance to, get our sprinkler
Okay,
day
okay,
into
yeah.
effect. I don't know if you need to work on that, or Rick, or somebody, but we need to somehow get together.
I haven't heard anything about it.
Every other, or even or not, or whatever, huh? Okay.
Yeah, we
okay.
were just gonna do pretty much, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So, but we just need to get that in place, so sprinkler system's coming pretty quick, and we kinda left it on the.
Do some communities actually do it throughout the year or only when there's a drought?
No, they do.
No, just all the time. It just helps to balance your usage, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
we're just now starting to get so many more properties with sprinkler systems.
Right.
That
Other
it is
subdivisions.
impacting the water usage, so we
Okay.
didn't have that many people that had sprinklers to really worry about having.
Send me your stuff and we'll get it done.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're hoping that we'll have that we can have it at the next council meeting maybe, or? does it have to be
Possibly,
at the
give me the stuff, don't wait till Tuesday before,
Monday before.
or Monday before. Yeah, same difference, it won't get done.
Perfect. That's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions for Tim?
Nope. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town attorney report, any,
No reports.
Okay.
Water rates are what they are.
okay, thanks, Dave. JMOB, anything new there, Rick, at all?
No, but I did reach out to Nicole Walkowski, I believe is
Okay,
the name,
my next
with
question.
Lakedale Carly
Yeah.
Regional Waste.
Well, Koyak,
Koyak?
Koyak.
Okay. And starting the dialogue to try to set up that meeting. I understand that we're supposed to be having a once-a-year meeting with those folks.
Yes.
What, I think I asked Rick this the other day, and I don't recall what we decided, but who is the group here that meets with them? Is it the utility board? Is it a subcommittee of the council?
It's always been the town council.
Okay,
Yeah, so it would essentially be the utility board now that we've created one.
right, right.
It's been a
I
while.
don't think we've
but-
ever met with them.
She said that it hasn't happened in the time.
Not in the last
Okay,
decade.
okay.
No,
Probably
you have-
since the
you have-
1980s, maybe?
It's been that long, right?
Maybe 2002?
No, it actually goes back into, to the late seventies.
Wow.
And it was amended in 95 for farmers' home loan financing of 40 years. And
So it
we're
was
coming
probably-
up pretty close to needing to discuss that again.
Is the purpose of this for setting rates from us to them?
It's just part of the statute,
No,
isn't it?
No.
Or is it part of our contract agreement?
it is part of our contract.
Okay.
They are connected to us by an interceptor. Their collected flow goes through a meter and runs into our interceptor and goes to Lowell. And it's the town council that, actually, the old contract, Bob, said town board. That's how old it is.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe she told me that their typical meeting night is the second Monday of the month at 6 o'clock, but whatever it is, I'll work out a time that works for all of us. They can host it, they don't have their own building, they use the HOA's building down there, so we can certainly host it here if you prefer to do that, whatever works, we can do it. But I believe the first Monday of the month, we want to avoid that, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
if at all possible.
All right, okay. And then, Randy, you would have a conflict on the third Monday because of RDC, so we're gonna have to look at maybe even a fifth week of the month when we have no meeting.
That could be, yeah, yeah.
We'll look at that.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Any public comment? Public comment? No public comment, meeting's adjourned. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. The town council meeting will begin shortly.
This meeting is called to order. This is Town Council public meeting for April 20th, 2021. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
Here.
John Foreman?
Present.
Julie Rivera? Here. Ralph Miller?
Present.
Colleen Sheehan is absent. Richard Sharp?
Here.
Randy Neumeyer?
Present.
I am present. Rick Everly?
Present.
David Austin?
Present. We have a quorum. We start with public hearings. We have two of them. Item one is ordinance 1381 is a public way vacation. Mr. Attorney, review of legals, please.
Legals are in order. Publications occurred in two newspapers. Timely, adjacent property owners were notified pursuant to the listing of property owners. Public hearing may be properly.
Opening remarks.
This is a public way vacation application by Mr. and Mrs. Viss in the vicinity of West 125th Avenue, 126. Nathan, what's your address? 126. Thanks, okay, I got it close. And these are public walkway, public way vacations on the north end of town in an old town subdivision. Nathan is here, Mr. Viss, to make comments.
Reading of ordinance 1381, Mr. Sharp, by its title, please.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1381, an ordinance vacating a public way in the town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. Are there any remonstrators for or against? Any remonstrators for or against? Any remonstrators for or against? No remonstrators are noted. Town council discussion. Any discussion by the council?
Yeah, I would just say that, this property to the north is the new subdivision there off of US 41, and a lot of these walkways were, pre-platted but never improved, back from, I think, the 20s and 30s. And, you know, various developers came out from Chicago, and this is just another example of an area where, these sorts of paths, will never be used. So that's about it.
Mr. Eberly or Mr. Austin, are there any utility crossings or easements there, or anything that would encumber this?
Yes, sir. In fact, that 125th Avenue to the east of this is where the council was considering and in the process of vacating that entire right-of-way to CL Vending, if you
Gotcha.
recall.
Yep.
So that's just a couple of lots to the east of this property.
Okay. Town council decision on ordinance 1381, public way vacation. Is there a motion to approve or not approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1381, public way vacation,
That's the first reading, Mr. Foreman.
as the first reading, yes.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Foreman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
No.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neumeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-1. There'll be a second reading at the
Five.
next,
5-1.
I'm sorry, 5-1. 5-1, there'll be a second reading at the next meeting. Item 2 on public hearings is, Community Development Block Grant. Mr. Attorney, review of legals.
I don't have them. No, we did this.
Mr. Everly.
Apologize, Mr. President, for this.
Mr. President, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Rick, if you
Go
have
ahead.
it, go ahead.
No, go ahead, David.
I was gonna suggest that you proceed pending verification that the public hearing notices have been made properly.
Yeah,
I'm
thank-
certain Mr. Brown's gonna want that done.
Yes, it is here. I'm sorry, Mr. President, it is here. Proof of publication is here in the, it's on page 18 of your packet. is with us this evening to, help with the conducting of both of these CDBG matters that are on your agenda.
Then I'll turn it to you, Tim, for opening remarks on the public hearing.
This is for your 2021 funds.
Right.
50 some odd
$57,450 is estimated.
It's your normal process. We do this every year, or every other year. And 21 happens to be your turn, 19 was the last time you did it. And you just hold a public hearing for comments, for the use of CDBG funds. And for those of you who don't know what that means, that's Community Development Block Grant Funds from HUD, Housing and Urban Development. So, you do your hearing, and if you adopt it, then you can get your monies come September 1st. And hopefully that'll continue the process you're doing with ADA projects or park projects or whatever you wish to choose. So for this one, that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
Are there any remonstrators for or against? Any remonstrators for or against? Any remonstrators for or against? No remonstrators. Reading of the affirmative action program. Mr. Sharp?
Affirmative Action Program implementing Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. Specific affirmative action steps. Town of Cedar Lake agrees to implement the following specific affirmative action steps directed at increasing the utilization of lower income residents and project area businesses. A, to ascertain from the HUD Area Office Director the exact boundaries of the Section 3 covered project area, and where advantageous, seek the assistance of local officials of the department in preparing and implementing the affirmative action plan. B, to attempt to recruit from appropriate areas the necessary number of lower income residents through local advertising media, signs placed at the proposed site for the project, and community organizations and in public or private institutions operating within or serving the project area, such as Service, Employment, and Redevelopment, SER, Operation Opportunities and Industrialization Center, OIC, Urban League, Concentrated Employment Program, Hometown Plat, or the U.S. Employment Service. C, to maintain a list of all lower income area residents who have applied either on their own or on referral from any source, and to employ such persons if otherwise eligible and if a vacancy exists. D, to insert this affirmative action plan in all bid documents and to require all bidders to submit a Section 3 affirmative action plan, including utilization goals and the specific steps planned to accomplish the goals. E, to ensure that contracts that are typically let on a negotiated rather than bid basis in areas other than Section 3 covered project area are also let on a negotiated basis where the ever feasible when let in a Section 3 covered project area. F, to formally contact unions, subcontractors, and trade associations to secure their cooperation for this program. G, to ensure that all appropriate project area businesses concerned are notified of pending contractual opportunities. H, to maintain records including copies of correspondence, memorandum, etc., which document that all the above affirmative action steps have been taken. I, to appoint or recruit an executive official of the company or agency as equal opportunity officers to coordinate the implementation of this Section 3 affirmative action plan.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. We now have another reading. I can take care of it if you want.
If you want, yeah, thank you, Randy.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
You could solicit a motion to approve what was just read, authorize appropriate signature, and then on each of the next several items versus a verbatim read, solicit a motion to approve and incorporate into the record verbatim what was presented to you in these documents tonight.
So down here under the public hearing, we have a town council decision on the affirmative action program, but it doesn't say anything about the Section 3 understanding.
It does, well, it does above that, reading of Section 3
It says reading of Section 3, but it doesn't have a decision item on it.
I know that, and, I also know that there's a signature block on it, and this is a form that Tim has used for 200 years. And,
I didn't know you were that old, Tim.
I almost have it memorized.
Okay, would the council consider a motion on,
Just saying.
on including the record, which is the affirmative action, program, as well as the section 3 understanding, including those verbatim into the record, as well as considering the approval of those items? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller, questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera? Yes. Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, 6-0, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Austin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Austin.
Next, we have a reading of Resolution 1278. Mr. Sharp, by its title, please.
Resolution number 1278, a resolution authorizing and directing the town council president of the town of Cedar Lake to submit a project proposal for community development block grant funds for the federal fiscal year 2021.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, would you like to come forward again?
No, I'm just, if you have any questions,
Okay.
that's what I said.
I saw you stand up, so I wanted to recognize you.
Questions, that's all.
Town council discussion, any questions for Mr. Brown?
No, sir.
Mr. Everly, do we have a plan for these monies?
Yes, sir. In fact, we plan to continue our ADA curb cuts and sidewalk ramps with this money as we are about to engage in with the money that we have left from the last round. So we've got, in fact, that might be part of the package, or it was gonna be separate, but we have more of this than we can possibly afford to do, so, yes, that's what we plan with it.
Very good.
For those dollars.
And that's in Lynn's Way subdivision.
Lynn's Way is where we're going to be, spending this 76,000 plus that we have now, and in fact, we could spend the rest of the 57,000 in.
We didn't mention the project and the location for the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Right.
Okay, thank
There
you.
are other options, but Lynn's Way, we could exhaust the entire combined amount.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other town council discussion? Is there a motion on, Resolution 1278 to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera, questions or discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes?
Julie Rivera? Yes. Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. That concludes our public hearings for the evening. Thank you, Tim Brown, for coming tonight. We have public comment on agenda items.
Mary Jo Gibson, 8711 West 132nd Place. The ordinance 1380, amending shelter fees. I'm hoping that will include some improvements to the shelter out here for 2 years. I've asked, the trim on there on the outside is so low, people trip over it and fall. We had 2 incidents at this last Penguin Flop. And also the roof has numerous holes in it. It's those wooden shingles, you might want to replace with something else. But to charge someone rent and have it in that condition, I just think it needs to be reviewed. Thank you.
That's very fair.
Yep, thank you.
And we did just come out of a winter, so I'm sure
Something like that.
our folks will be looking at all the facilities.
And I already reported that to the town manager, and he's on top of it.
Good.
Any other public comment on agenda items? Public comment on agenda items, third call, public comment on agenda items. Public comment is closed. We have our consent agenda, which is the minutes of the April 6, 2021 meeting. Tag day request, Hanover Central High School cheer, July 10 with a rain date of July 17, 2021. Claims, all town funds, $251,396.89. Wastewater operating, $142,176.29. Water utility, $91,751.17. Stormwater, $20,252.07. And payroll, 4/15 of 2021 of $203,686.67. Manual journal entries for March 1 through March 31, 2021, and the sweet corn sales approval of June 22nd through September 15th, 2021 in the True Value parking lot, where it's been the last several years. So motion to accept and waive the reading of the minutes and accept the consent agenda as listed.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Rivera, is there a
Second.
second? Second by Mr. Foreman. Questions or discussion?
Yes. In our claims, we're approving, $10,000 to the Sportsman's Den, and that's part of our redevelopment commission where we have facade grants, and we had $100,000 for 2020, and we have $100,000 for 2021, and I believe we have about $20,000 left.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
And, so I just wanted to explain a little bit about the facade grants, and you'll see a number of businesses that will be improving their facade, and part of it is due to the fact they get, some help from, the town.
Yeah, and I believe that we've calculated so far that the total amount in improvements compared to the amount granted is about a 6-to-1 ratio. So, we're getting a lot of bang for the buck as it relates to the facade grants. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Ordinances and resolutions, item 1 is Resolution 1279, Community Development Block Grant Participation Agreement. Mr. Sharp, by its title only, please.
Resolution number 1279, a resolution authorizing the town of Cedar Lake, Indiana, to enter into an agreement with the county of Lake, Indiana, in undertaking community development activities.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of Resolution 1279. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carnahan. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 2 is Ordinance 1380, amending the shelter fees and Monastery Woods clubhouse fees. Ms. Dixon, your comments are noted. Ordinance 1380 by its title only, please, Mr. Sharp.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1380. An ordinance amending town ordinance number 1195, being, quote, an ordinance establishing a facility fee schedule for the use of park and recreation facilities and structures located on town property, repealing all ordinances and town code provisions or portions thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto, unquote. Repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of Ordinance 1380?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foreman. Questions or discussion? Discussion. Going through these charges, just for the record, looks like the Lion's Den would be $100.
Yes.
The gazebo, $75, Cardinal's Roost, $50, Bandstand, $250, Eagle's Nest, $100, rental of the town grounds, $500. That includes a 7% tax as well. Clubhouse, for nonprofits, the charge is $50. For Cedar Lake residents, $125. For non-residents, $200. So we have a motion and second on ordinance 1380. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call vote.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow for a second reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Foreman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Mr. Sharp, second reading by its title, please.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1380. An ordinance amending town ordinance number 1195 being, quote, an ordinance establishing a facility fee schedule for the use of park and recreation facilities and structures located on town property, repealing all ordinances and town code provisions or portions thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto, unquote, repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. The second reading of ordinance 1380, is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Sharp, questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Ordinance is adopted. Item 3, ordinance
President.
Yep.
Requires publication. This ordinance now upon adoption.
Okay. Item 3, ordinance 1382, establishing the American Rescue Plan Fund Number. Mr. Sharp, by its title only, please.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1382. An ordinance of the Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, establishing the ARPA, Local Fiscal Recovery Grant Fund for the town in conformance with the provisions of applicable law and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. It's the first reading 82. Is there a motion to approve the first
Do we
reading?
have an explanation of this?
The explanation is that in order for us to receive the funds, we have to have a fund established.
Where are those funds coming from? Is this the federal government where we're getting?
2.7 million plus.
American Rescue Plan, Bob.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify.
We'll get a good portion
Yeah, I know.
between that, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify it.
It's an account to deposit in.
Yes.
Mhm.
But we don't know what we can spend it on yet?
We have a little bit of guidance.
It's getting clearer.
Our financial advisor, I'm sure, could offer some, insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, really uses right now that are being discussed, they're still kind of fine tuning exactly what it is, but, essentially those funds are primarily to, make the town whole for any COVID losses that you, so you can reimburse yourselves for any revenue losses, that you incurred in 2020 and until the end of 2024, in comparison to 2019. You can also use those funds for, infrastructure projects. I think they know that, there might not be that many, $2.7 million in COVID losses in the town of Cedar Lake, so they're also allowing infrastructure improvements and things like that.
Like roads?
Not roads, but, water utility, stormwater, wastewater, you can get into the gray with the stormwater and the roads, but, you can probably make an argument there, but those things are still kind of.
Wasn't tourism one of the things attached to that as well?
Tourism was one as well, so you.
And that's pretty broad from a definition standpoint, too.
Yeah, so
Buildings.
David will be,
John.
look at that.
What about buildings?
But buildings, no, I haven't seen anything regarding buildings. Again, if you wanted to somehow tie it into some tourism loss or something, for buildings that you rent or something, you could make that argument, but.
Let's not stretch too far.
Yeah.
We're gonna have it all
We
spent
need to, we
before we
need to
get
stay
it.
narrow.
Overtime
Stretching it all
Yeah.
Yeah.
The money's not here.
No, it's not here.
Yeah, you can also
Gotta have
use
money.
it to, help pay for certain overtime wages, certain premium paid wages as well. So that is another option. There's supposed to be overtime wages specific to, COVID related issues. Pretty broad again, but, that is another use that they're allowing.
So like if we had people that were off because of COVID and then we had to pay overtime for people, then we could probably justify that.
I don't wanna say yes or no to that. About it, yeah. My thinking was that they were really thinking that, public safety officials that had to work overtime, emergency services that were required.
I think that's what he means, like police and
Fire.
Yeah.
If we had people that were off and we had to.
Oh, I got you, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
What about increased volume of calls because of COVID? having to pay overtime.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are all things that I think they're still kind of working out if they're going to, you know, you're ultimately gonna report all this back to the federal government too, so you're reporting directly to them, so it's kind of whatever comes from them is gonna probably be our best guide.
One of the things I did some research on, COVID prevention. And I know fire departments that are upgrading facilities so that they don't have people living on top of each other.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, all of these things would be potential uses, I just don't wanna say yes or no, there's really anything specifically until,
Should talk to Crown Point, 'cause that's what they're doing.
If we get any guidance on it, I should say. Tim?
We provided Cedar Lake with COVID round 1 and 3 funds from the CARES Act,
Yep.
and that can be used for exactly overtime, barriers, separation.
And we did use it for that.
Use it all?
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
we?
never mind.
Sit
Wasn't
down.
sure if you used it all. Sorry, I was hoping that might get.
Yeah.
All right, tried.
Yep.
It helped a lot, it did.
Tried.
Okay, we have first reading of ordinance 1382. Is there a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Rivera, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Is there a motion to suspend the rules, allow for a second reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sharp. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Second reading of ordinance 1382. Mr. Sharp?
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1382. An ordinance of the Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, establishing the ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Grant Fund for the town in conformance with the provisions of applicable law and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. It's the second reading of ordinance 1382. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sharp. Questions or discussion on the motion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 4 is ordinance 1383, S31, supplement to the town code. Mr. Sharp by its title.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1383. An ordinance adopting and enacting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana.
Mr. Austin?
This is your regular codification update. It's probably been worked by Jennifer.
Yep.
With Town's Code Company, and this is an annual item.
Ms. Sandberg?
Unfortunately, with the pandemic last year, it was really hard connecting with American Legal Publishing, so we were unable to update our code last year. So this encompasses everything from the last time we did it in 2019.
Thank you.
Which it covers the ordinance 1317 through 1372, and I like the list that you put in there.
Yep, it's very good. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 1383?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carnahan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Is there a motion to suspend the rules, allow for second reading?
So moved. Yep.
Motion by Mr. Form, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Second reading of ordinance 1383 by its title only, please, Mr. Sharp.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1383. An ordinance adopting and enacting a supplement to the town code of ordinances of the Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana.
Thank you. You've heard the second reading of ordinance 1383. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carnahan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Ordinance 1383 is adopted. BZA item 1 is Feege, special use variance 13934 Pickett Way. Note favorable recommendation from the BZA to operate a home-based FFL, federal firearms license, allowing the transfer of firearms to individuals and do minor gunsmithing work. Mr. Everly.
Mr. President, this comes to you with a unanimous favorable recommendation from the Board of Zoning Appeals for the use of the property in this manner.
There are also 5 findings of fact, and the variance of use applied for 4 different items there as well. So any motion that's made should include the findings of fact.
Mr. President, I have a question. Where exactly in town is this? Is this in a subdivision?
It is.
So this is not Mr., are you, Mr.
It's a home-based business.
John, would you like to?
Yeah, if you don't
Mr.
mind.
Feege?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, sir.
He gave a great presentation in BZA meeting. I watched it online. It was
Oh, did
really
you?
good. Yeah.
Yes, so, yeah, explain what exactly this is. I apologize, I was not at and did not view the BZA meeting.
No, it's no problem. It's essentially, I'm applying for my federal firearms license with the ATF.
Okay.
In order to be able to do like firearm transfers for people, like if somebody wants to order a firearm online, and I can do a transfer where it gets shipped to me, I fill out all the paperwork, get their approval through the federal government, and then provided they pass the background check, then I can turn over the firearm to them. My intention, though, is majority of the work is to be online sales where it's drop shipped directly to the person's FFL of choice, so then they would do it there. So,
FFL, Federal Firearm Licensing?
Yeah, because it's like kind of contrary to what the media says, where you can just go to places and buy guns without anything, right? There actually has to be a go-between.
Right.
Which is a federal firearms dealer if you're buying something online or from another seller that's not a dealer.
right,
Correct?
and in fact, with some of the things that they're proposing, it's going to have an increased need for having people with FFLs because there's talk that they want to require even private transfers. Because right now, technically, to do a private transfer, you don't need an FFL. Joe Schmo can sell it to another individual, provided you live in the same state without any sort of paperwork or background check. But going through this, they are proposing to require these background checks through an FFL even with private sales. So there's going to be more of a demand for this type of transfer activity. But also I'll be doing some like minor gunsmithing work in the garage, just basically small types of work like adjusting or installing sights and doing routine cleaning.
Are you in a single-family home or a townhome or?
It's a villa, but our garages are completely separate on opposite ends of the structure.
In Centennial?
Yes.
And that went through the BZA and there was no remonstrators.
Yeah.
In fact, all my neighbors have been coming to me asking when I'm getting it because they want to purchase.
Yeah, I have nothing against guns. I just find that, you know, we could be setting a precedent, and now we've got 10, 15, 20 folks now applying for this. As you mentioned, this is gonna be something new, and I just worry about the safety of these individual neighborhoods. I know probably that it's going to be, straightforward in your mind, in your eyes, but with little kids in the neighborhood and things like that, we had a South County Arms that was in town prior to a fire next to where the Aurelio's is now. And I'm pretty sure they operated like that, but they had a separate storefront, so, you know, I'm not against guns at all, I just worry about something like this out of a house. I know the BZA was
Well,
comfortable.
the FFL requires that I have secured storage for any firearms that are brought into the site.
Mm-hmm.
I have to keep a log of those firearms.
Sure.
And at any time, I am able to be inspected by the ATF to make sure that I'm complying with all these things. So, by trade, I'm a safety manager. So believe me, I understand safety. And that's what I emphasize. In fact, I've done numerous gun safety trainings and so forth. So as far as children in the neighborhood, unless they're going to break into my home and commit a felony, I don't see, much of a potential for something like that.
Yeah, 5-acre property or something like that, a home business in a duplex inside of a neighborhood, I don't know, I understand the BZA gave their findings of fact and gave approval, but it just concerns me.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Feach? Thank you,
All right,
appreciate it. So we have a presentation in front of us with findings of fact included. Is there a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to defer, just so I could, look into this. I only read what we had here in our packet. I just feel as though, in the event a motion were made, it would also need to have some, monthly or maybe 6-month and then 1-year, contingent upon, review of the establishment. I just feel like we could be going down a slippery slope. And
So if you read this, it says petitioner shall return to the BZA on September 9, 2021 to provide an update
Right.
business use status. So that's already built into this.
Yeah, I have a motion
BZA.
to defer
Yep.
this item at this
Motion
time.
to defer by Mr. Foreman, is there a second? Is there a second?
That's just the wrong community for it.
I'll second so we can have some time to look into it, and, at our next meeting, maybe we'll have a full council.
There's a second by Ralph on a motion to defer. Is there any question or discussion on the motion?
Can I ask a question? I just want, Chief Fisher, since you're the police officer in the room, can you, give your opinion on this?
To be honest with you, I think he's doing it the legal route. There's a lot of people that work on weapons anyways that don't even go through the process that he's going through. And to get an FFL is very difficult. ATF is very stringent, and they pretty much prod and poke everything to make sure that you're not a bad person. So, if he's got his FFL from the ATF, that's pretty darn good, so. It's difficult to get. So, and usually I get a copy of the application process. We have a few in town already, because we keep a copy of their application so that we know that they have the FFL there. And we actually use a couple of them in town for law enforcement purposes, so.
So you're in favor? I mean, you're okay with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to defer. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
No.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
No.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
No.
Randy Niemeyer?
No. That motion fails to defer. Are there any other motions on this item? Is there a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ms. Rivera to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. President.
Mr. Austin?
Julie, will you consider adding the conditions that were certified to you by the BZA and the findings?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve, adding the conditions that the BZA, found.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sharp. Questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
No.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer?
Yes, motion carries 5-1. It's approved. Thank you.
Good luck to you. Be safe. Thank you.
I appreciate you, doing this stuff the right way. It's really important in today's society that we have, yes, people doing this the right way, because, our police can't be everywhere all the time, and they're being more and more restricted at what they can do, and I'm a big believer that a responsibly armed society is a polite society, so, I think that we'll hopefully see more good, responsible people like you doing this.
Okay.
Thank you.
As far as the variances, I need to provide something to the ATF.
Do you mean for the approval?
Yeah, there'll be a letter
Minutes.
from the administrative office, and the minutes of this meeting will reflect it also.
Okay.
And a copy of this certification once signed.
Correct.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much, I appreciate the help.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item 2 is, Hen Use Variance 13212 Wicker Avenue. Favorable recommendation from the BZA to allow 3 businesses on a B2 zoning district lot. Contingent upon town council approval and subdivision plat approval from the plan commission. Mr. Everly.
Yes, Mr. President, as you read, this is the former guard, laundromat, that Mr. Hen has sought this approval for. BZA sent you a 4-0, recommendation, favorable recommendation. There was one member absent at the time. And this is, as you said, this is to conduct 3 different uses from the same building on the same piece of property at that location.
And there were 5 findings of fact listed in the record as well.
Correct.
Is there a motion by the council to approve or deny the, use
I'll make a
variance?
motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Miller, does that include the findings of fact?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera, questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. It's approved. New business, item 1 is 2021 Garbage and Recycling Bid Award. This is a carryover from, the last meeting. Mr. Austin, you have reviewed the, technical data in the contract?
I have, and, I would ask, your consideration of approving entry into the contract, subject to one final read for the last details that were exchanged today.
Okay.
But substantively, it's, where you wanted it.
We have a recommendation from the attorney to approve, contingent upon one final review.
I would make a motion to approve contingent upon the one final item to review.
Motion by Mr. Foreman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sharp, questions or discussion?
Mr. President, just for clarification, I believe Margaret has, you all have a copy of the, contract in your packets, but I
Yes.
believe she provided an original, or a signature page for your signature, Mr. President.
Yes.
And Mr. Austin, would you, advise that Mr. Niemeyer sign that this evening, or wait until, you and I have that review of the document and give the entire document for his signature?
Based upon how the signature block is situated, you may sign it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions or discussion? Roll call vote?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Doug, again, thank you for, you guys being flexible with us and working with us on this, and look forward to, 6 productive years.
6 years.
Yep.
6 years, it's like a marriage.
It's longer than some.
We talked about that, it's like a marriage. 6 years.
Well, then that's a good number,
Well,
Doug.
no wonder
We'll
you
keep
didn't
it
want
at
a
that.
6-year contract.
Okay.
Right. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you again. Item 2 is agreement for the elimination of sewer utility billing 14621 Huseman Street. Mr. Everly.
This is actually, again,
Ms. Amber.
So we have received confirmation that the sewer tap connection has been inspected and disconnected by Public Works, so this is ready to rock and roll.
Thank you. Is there a motion by the council to approve the agreement of the elimination of sewer utility billing for 14621 Huseman Street?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sharp, questions or discussion? Roll call vote.
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 3 is the selling of the town's old pier. As you know, we are entering into a partnership with the Cedar Lake Historical Association to install a new public pier, which includes police and fire pier on one portion of it. Mr. Everly.
yes, Mr. President, this is, as you said, this is to dispose of the old pier. as I understand it, Chief Fisher probably has a little more information than I, but the contractor had no interest in it as a trade-in, representing no value to him. He did tell Chief Fisher that it has some value on the resale market, and we're looking to be able to sell it as opposed to trying to store it down in Public Works, so we need your permission to do that. Chief Fisher?
Thank you.
How would we go about selling? Just auction, just people put in a
Well, there's
How
a
does that
couple ways
work?
we could go on I think it's.
Gov deal.
Gov
Deals.
Govdeals.com,
Mhm.
we could auction it off. I did have some interest expressed for a few of the sections from, employees. But it was just, the problem is, so many of the sections are just bad, they're no good, so
Right.
we couldn't sell them anyways. They've been repaired too many times now. The stanchions that go inside the water are pretty good because, they're just good.
I'd like to make a motion that we first ask some of the nonprofits that may be on the lake, if they're interested in it, and giving it to them. And if that fails, then we move forward with trying to put it on auction.gov or whatever it is.
Well, as long as we can, in that motion, we can go through them and get rid of the sections
Yeah.
that we feel are bad in the first place, so.
You bet. Well, we just
We
don't
just
give
need
them
the-
those
we
sections.
just need the
Throw
ability
those
to
in the
get rid of
dumpster.
it, so.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just thinking out loud, what do we have nonprofit wise
Yeah,
on the lake?
that's what I was
Conference,
gonna ask you.
conference grounds, Clear Lake Chamber,
No, they have a brand new pier from Sunrise.
do they?
Paid $15,000 for
Okay. I just, you know,
That's the
we're in the
downside to
lake,
that.
it'd be
I
nice.
agree, but the downside, most of the lake, front people have brand new piers. Particularly from Sunrise, he's doing a lot of them right now, so.
Mhm.
Actually, I got a meeting with Julie and him next week for some of the stuff that's going on up here, so,
So he's saying, hey, I don't want the pier.
He has no value to it, cause nobody's using that style of pier anymore, so,
The only value is to somebody that maybe
Has-
doesn't have a pier and wants to install one and can buy one at a decent
Yeah, that's
price.
kinda what I'm thinking. So for
Or-
example,
or someone
various
that has that
neighborhoods.
kind already.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking,
Could
you know,
use some
when I
repair
said
parts.
nonprofit, there's a lot of little neighborhoods that are on the lake that have walking paths to the lake that may or may not have a pier for the people at least to stand out on.
Sure.
So if we just, you know, I hate to have it laying around on the lakefront during the kickoff of spring.
It should not be laying there anymore, it got moved, so.
Oh, okay.
We put it at
Great.
the other park,
I would just like
section
to,
of it?
well, we just bought another pier for the other park, Todd.
The
Or
golf
chief.
field things is pretty good, a lot of people look at that.
Yeah,
And that's an auction site, so.
okay. Yeah, then I would be okay with it then.
What's your motion then, John?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to pursue the auction government site that Bill Fisher's, or Chief Fisher's talking about.
It's authorizing the selling of the town's pier.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions or discussion?
Just one question, Mr. President. If it doesn't receive any bids, do we have permission to at least get rid of it?
Dispose of it?
Scrap it.
I would add that to my motion.
Mr. Miller, you concur?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Chief, if you could just let us know when this auction is going to be and/or have the,
I'll do it
have it
through
put in the
Tom.
bulletin for the, I'd like taxpayers in town to have first dibs on it, actually.
Yeah, we'll do it
Or
through
know about
Tom
it.
at the Public Works. He's, usually does that for us.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? Roll call vote?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neiman?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 4 is tourism funds request. Kelly Dykstra requested funds for the musical performances at the farmers market. Mr. Everly.
Mr. President, this is still the only request we have for these funds for this year. We deferred it, from the last meeting, to give others a chance to apply for it. We've heard from no other applicants. The question is whether you want to give it more time, or would you like to award whatever funds we get this year to the, farmers market?
Yeah, because from Mr. Batistatos, he said that we will most likely not receive our normal allotment of $4,725. It could be somewhere in the low 3,000s.
Correct.
So we don't know yet what that final allotment will be.
Do we know if the symphony is gonna perform this year?
In the past, we've supported the symphony with different line items in our budget.
But with COVID, are they gonna move forward?
Diane, would you like
I
to
don't
talk
think
about
so.
it or me?
I don't know if you mind, but the symphony, I don't think is going to have any outside concerts, I understand it. However, we did have the Lakeside Artist Guild, come to us with a plan to use the stage if they could, every Thursday night for about 9 to 10 weeks,
Awesome.
if they can raise some money.
And that gentleman was here at a meeting
He was here.
a while ago, and it was very
Dan
interesting.
or something, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but
But, so what he talked to me, they performed at Faith Bible Church last, Friday, and Dominic Cordocrat family has that church, and Dominic invited me there, and it was amazing. They're from, South Chicago Symphony or something?
No, they're actually, they perform with the Lyric Opera, they perform with Northwest Indiana, with the Wheaton Symphony, but they're musicians who are starving.
yeah.
They decided to band together to see if they could perform at local groups, local churches or venues, and they are professionals.
Nice.
They're good.
I
So,
hope they do it.
so what I was going to suggest, but I didn't know I'd be, saying this tonight, is we used to have, music in the parks years ago, and maybe we could sponsor something like this, with them.
Well, you could possibly work with Kelly to incorporate that into some of what she's doing, if that's something that.
Well, they wanna do it on Thursday night.
And she's on.
They're working
Yeah.
around their musicians' schedule, so. We will try and help, the chamber will
Sure.
try and help.
The chamber's going, she's called the chamber insurance, and we can cover them under our insurance. But we've gotta cover a few other things, and I didn't wanna come here before I had everything in place.
Okay,
Well, it
so-
doesn't take much to eat up less than $4,000 or whatever this budget is. So I think, I would be in favor of just, we know what we have with the farmer's market, it's successful. It's quite a draw, and I think it'd be a pretty neat thing to, expand with music on that evening, and also if we can in any way, shape, or form support the Thursday night event, since they're kinda getting going, I think we
They
do
are
it.
currently, playing in Valpo at a winery.
Very cool. Yeah, they sound like
So
great.
John, is that a motion?
That's a
to-
motion to, I'd like to make a motion to allow the Kelly Dykstra requested funds for the musical performances at the farmer market,
Whatever
to be
that
used.
amount ends up being, the
Whatever that
whole
amount. the entire amount.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Foreman, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Miller, questions or discussion?
I would just like, since we don't know exactly how much we're getting, or if someone else is going to ask for the funds, I'd like to make that motion, $1,000 to donate to the.
There's
farmers
already a
market.
motion and second for the entire amount.
So you're asking me to modify my motion to make it not to exceed $1,000?
If you can, or want to.
Well, what do we have, May?
People fight over this little bit of money like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's $200 a Wednesday night,
Unbelievable.
getting us to September. I would do that, Julie. I will add
Just in case someone else.
up to $1,000.
Okay, not to exceed $1,000. Ralph, do you concur?
Yes.
Concurrence, motion second. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan,
Yeah.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Julia Rivera,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Randy Neemeyer.
No, I think this should just all be gone. Just a little bit of money, but,
That's
okay.
true.
Petty cash.
Item 5 is sustainability plan. This has been talked about for quite a while. We have our financial advisor, Corby Thompson from O.W. Cronin Associates with us tonight. He has passed this around, so, Mr. Thompson, the floor is yours.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know some of you have seen part of this, some of you haven't seen much of it. But, you know, in front of you guys, you have quite a large packet. It really is, you know, kind of a comprehensive look at everything the town does and, you know, trying to formulate some projections for the next 5 years. But what I really want to do tonight, because there is so much in there, is just kind of give an introduction to what this is, go over some of the key assumptions, some of the key items, some of the key findings that are in there, then let you guys take it, digest it, and then the future date, continue the conversations as they're needed. So that's kind of the plan here. But you also have in front of you kind of a little PowerPoint slide. That's what I'm going to kind of just go through tonight. We can hit some things in the report later if we need, but that was kind of my plan.
Is that PowerPoint available online, or do we not have it?
I have it on a flash drive if you wanna pull it up, so the,
Yeah, we can do
It
that.
might be
see.
good to put
Yeah.
that through our system, that way anybody watching online, or anybody who watches the feed on YouTube afterwards can,
You know how we do it, Jen?
Right there.
Oh, you have
can
it?
view
Oh, I
it.
thought it was in the back.
And, Mary, if you'd like, after the meeting, I can provide you copies of this.
Mr. Cliff, wanna help me out? See, not so hard for me.
Yeah,
Without even touching a computer,
Right.
can't you?
Is Mr. Cliff kind of like Siri?
Yes,
Totally.
Yeah?
yes,
You just speak it into the air and then Cliff just appears?
amazingly, yes.
Wow.
Hang on, I'm not
He's on
messing,
it.
he's on it.
Oh, is it?
I wasn't talking to myself when I said Mr. Cliff.
That's what you're paying for.
Corby, do you have any more
I
copies
didn't know
of
you
this?
had PC anywhere going
Print it
on.
up?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'll get you guys electronic copies of these, so,
Yeah, if you could send me, I'm gonna give my hard copy to the press.
yeah.
John, do you know something you could do there to pop it up? He said he could do
Cliff's got the control of the mouse, we'll let him rock and roll.
Already got it pulling up.
Here it goes.
Cliff, what's the capital of South Africa? That's our own little Siri here in Cedar Lake is Cliff.
Johannesburg.
Johannesburg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's right, see?
That's great.
Can't trick him.
All right, let's walk through this.
Yep,
Thank
okay,
you,
so
Corby.
before I kind of get into the actual assumptions, I just wanna talk about.
Tim, can you touch those lights over there?
I just want to touch on kind of the plan in general. So the first slide I have here, if you'll go to the next slide, you know, what is this plan? I kind of just touched on that briefly. It's a comprehensive plan, provides projections as a guide for future receipts, operating disbursements, debt service, and capital outlays to provide sustainable local government operations. So we kind of looked at all the town's different civil funds, the different utilities, and just did, you know, a lot of analysis on all of the revenues, the disbursements. We also talked about capital projects and all those things, so really this is, an all-encompassing report here. It's not meant to be kind of a set-in-stone plan. You know, things have been allocated accordingly and appropriately in the plan, but, you know, as things come up and things change, we can make updates to this report. So if we want to say, hey, you know, we have more funds here than over here available, can we pay for something out of this fund? You know, we can go back, change some assumptions, and fairly easily get a new report and see how it all shakes out. So in that regard, it is kind of a dynamic report. So it should be just a really useful tool for the town.
Awesome.
So why is it needed? You know, the town doesn't have a lot at its disposal when it comes to kind of longer-term planning, when it comes to its finances. You know, you go through a budget process every year. I'm sure you guys have annual reports regarding your utilities. I know you do for your IURC, your water utility. But this is just a way to just kind of get ahead and be, you know, another reason that we really want to take a look at this is because your town's growing at a pretty good rate. You know, since in the last 5 years, your population's grown 11%, and your certified net assessed value is up 35% in the last 5 years. So while all this growth and stuff is good, you do have some additional needs that you need to address. So this next slide here, this is actually just a slide I kind of just pulled and updated from the budget presentation, if you remember. But I just kind of want to touch, you know, on all the different functions that the town needs to serve. You know, additional population, we've got additional needs. You know, as these developments continue, additional road extensions and services are going to be required. More population probably means you're going to have higher call volumes for police and fire. So additional officers may be needed. More construction and permits, things of that, you know, you got to make sure everybody's up to code, more people, more permits, these kinds of things. You've also got the utilities to worry about. So
you know, utility capacity is limited, so, you know, that's definitely something that'll have to be addressed in the future as well. And then you've got some quality of life projects that, you know, I'm sure the citizens will be wanting, you know, and those will include, you know, the ecosystem cleanup project that we'll touch on, you know, as well as, other projects, whether it's for parks or what it may be, so, that's just kind of a list of some of the things I think that we need to consider as we move forward here. So the plan's kind of broken up into 4 pieces, or that's how I think it should kind of be viewed. Your first section, starting on page 4, that's your summary of your cash balances. So when you take a look at that, what those are is just your ending cash balances as of year end through 2025. You know, you can kind of take a look there and see, you know, how all of these underlying assumptions kind of shake out. So this is kind of the single schedule that kind of pulls it all together. You know, there's more to it than just those schedules, but again, there are the ending results there. You've got a capital project section. That just kind of talks about all the various capital projects that I've been working with your management with, as well as some other professionals, just getting a list out there and then figuring out how we're going to fund these, you know, alternative funding possibilities, things of that nature all included in there. After your capital project section, you have your individual fund projections. So each one of the town's civil funds and selected utility funds has a 5-year projection out there with some very detailed assumptions. So you can kind of take a look at those and see, you know, on a fund-by-fund basis, what are we proposing that's going to go on there. The last section is just some supplemental information. There's some demographic information, some tax rate information, information regarding local income taxes, as well as kind of a little debt portfolio for you. So you've got all your bond amortization schedules in the back there as well. I think it's kind of important just to talk about how this plan was developed. And I say that just because, you know, there's certain things that we need to address first, and then there's certain things that we can kind of back into. So first and foremost, the most important thing is make sure the town can sustain its operations. That's the most important thing. You know, if you can't pay for your day-to-day operations, you know, we're going to be in some big trouble. Secondly, you already have some outstanding debt, so we just make sure that all those requirements are getting taken care of. We made sure that, you know, we're not exceeding any debt limitations that might be out there, things kind of that nature. And the final piece would be kind of pulling together and seeing all of the capital projects that we can afford. So that's kind of the very last piece that we look at is the capital project section. So before I kind of get into the actual assumptions regarding, you know, the underlying assumptions that make our report here, I wanted to look at, you can go to the next one. I kind of wanted to look at that big picture that I was talking about. So starting on page 4, I mentioned that's kind of the beginning of the cash balance summary section. There's also a nice graph I've got in there that kind of categorizes various funds based upon their function and just shows their cash balances over this 5-year period or 7-year period here. Things I kind of just want to note on the schedule. Obviously, you know, if you're looking to do some kind of sustainability plan, you know, you'd like to see those cash balances be pretty level. You do see some dips in there, especially in 2022 and 25. The reason you see that is because there's capital projects that occur in those years. So, you know, in general, your cash balance is going up. It's just occasionally you're going to accumulate funds and then you're going to dish them out for these capital projects. So that's just a function of that as what you're seeing there. On the next slide, this is going to be the only time I really talk about receipts. The receipts are much more given than the disbursements are. You know, there's only so much that the town can do to raise funds. You know, you guys have historically done a really good job at making sure that you guys maximize everything you get. So that was kind of the main goal here is, you know, maximize what we can get, allocate those amounts accordingly to fund the various operations and capital projects that we'll see later. For property taxes, you know, I mentioned your guys' certified net assessed value is increasing like crazy. Unfortunately, your max levy can only increase so much on a year-to-year basis, except for a 3-year growth appeal, which you guys qualified for last year. I've already done some calculations. It looks like you guys are going to qualify for one for 2022 as well. So kind of what we see for property taxes 2021, we've got that from the 1782 notice. That's kind of a given. 2022, we assume a 5% increase in your overall levy. So each fund that's allocated levy, we see a 5% increase there. After 2022, we've got 5% increases for the general fund and the CCD fund and their property tax distributions, hence their levy increase as well. And the reason that we did 5% for the general fund and 3% for the other funds, the general fund, we know we're going to have periodic 3-year growth appeals in there. So what we're going to do is just assume, you know, there's one in there, and it's all going to get allocated towards the general fund. The CCD fund's kind of special. It has its special 5-cent rate. So as your guys' certified net assessed value goes up, you actually do get more revenue there. So that's a big plus for the town. Local income taxes, you guys get some economic development income tax as well as some public safety income taxes. We've actually held those level through the end of 2022, and the reason we just did that is just because of the unknown with COVID and kind of its impacts on the economy and all those things. But beginning in 2023, we kind of expect those revenues to start jumping back up. The assumption is basically that the town is adding 375 people a year. And out of this 375, what we did is we figured out what the current rate is that you guys receive for, where we take your total local income tax dollars for economic development, public safety, divided by your population, get a number. That's the number that we assign to each one of these new 375 residents. So it's kind of on a population basis there. Some other major receipts I just kind of want to mention would be your building and zoning permits and charges. You know, that's been a huge revenue stream for the town as of late. I think it was about $1.4 million or so in 2020. We've got about 1.2 to 1.1 going forward. Those are just assumptions based upon what we've seen in the past couple of years, as well as kind of what we expect to see going forward. MVH and LRS distributions, 2021 is based on the DLGF estimates. 2022, we've just kind of held constant, again, just not really knowing what's going to happen there. And then in 2023 through 2025, we assume a 3% increase. And that's historically about what the town's seeing. There are other miscellaneous revenues. You know, in order to really get into those details, you're going to have to check the individual fund assumptions. Something that's not on here that I just kind of want to briefly mention would be the utility revenues. What we've kind of assumed there would be that 200 customers connect and tap on to the system each year. And then in addition to those connection and tap fees that they'll be paying, we assume just that 4,000 gallon bill for 12 months. So that's kind of what we've done there for 200 additional customers. Some key disbursement assumptions. You know, a large portion of the town's budget is for salaries and wages and employee benefits. So as you see kind of the operating disbursements increase as you go year by year, that's largely in fact due to the increases in salaries and wages. 2021, we've just assumed that 95% of budgeted amounts are spent. Subsequent years, we assume a 3% cost of living adjustment for town administration, public works, and utility employees. But subsequent years, or years 2022 through 2025, we assume a 5% cost of living adjustment for public safety officers. And that, again, is just another way to help the town try to retain its officers. Other operating disbursements, so essentially anything other than salaries and wages. We kind of just start with a baseline of 90% of whatever we budgeted in 2021. 2022 through 2025, we just kind of have nominal inflationary increases, whether that's annually or periodically, just to make sure that we are adjusting for inflation there. I've got a note at the bottom here just to kind of give us just some idea of what the town has spent historically. It's been about 85% of budgeted amounts. So, just by nature of that, there's kind of a little bit of conservancy built in here. I think as you guys kind of caught on with the revenues too, it's a little more on the conservative side, but should be in the ballpark there. So those are just some assumptions kind of in general. I kind of want to hit on some of the more major funds and kind of what we actually see that's going on there. So within the general fund, the main changes on a year-over-year basis would be just your public safety officers. So in addition to the 5% per year that's presented in this plan, we propose that the town adds another full-time police officer about every 2 years and a new fire officer about every 3 years in order to maintain that same level of service that they currently are providing. So for the police officers, you'll see hires in 2023 and 2025. The fire officer you'll see in 2024. And then we also have in here some equipment as well as some training and some other additional appropriations disbursements for those additional items as well. One thing that's just kind of different than other funds would be you kind of have that, your group health insurance is dispersed out of your general fund. We've increased that by 5% per year versus the 3%. Again, it's just, there's a little bit more unknown with health care and all that. The general fund has a lot of other kind of significant changes or year-over-year changes compared to the other funds, but you're really going to have to look at the general fund specific details in order to really see those. Next, I've got a slide for your key road and public works funds. This would kind of be your MVH restricted, and your LRS funds. So again, those same 2021 assumptions kind of hold true for this fund, but beginning in 2022, we'll take a look at this top section for public works staff. You've got a shift of one employee's salaries and wages from MVH to your Lake County Solid Waste fund, and the reason we did that was because we weren't really sure if we were going to receive those grant funds in 2020, so we shifted that salary to MVH. So this is really just shifting it back. But also in 2022, we assumed $20,000 in additional overtime pay for those public works employees. And one of the reasons that we did that is you guys had a lot of snow this year, and you guys ran out of that overtime money quite quickly. So to help kind of make sure that we have a little buffer for that, we've added $20,000 in overtime. But in addition, we've also added $50,000 at the very bottom here. You can see this. We also added $50,000 in proposed maintenance contracts, so that the town can go out and hire people to help with plowing as well as road clearing or whatever it may be. So those are kind of the main increases there. I'm just going to kind of touch on the MVH restricted disbursements that you'll see in the plan. 2021 and 2022 assume that there's about $100,000 of unidentified road preservation, construction, and reconstruction is the term we use for those MVH restricted funds. But in addition to that $100,000 of unidentified, there's some capital projects that are dispersed out of those funds in 2021 and 2022 as well. You can use the $100,000 of unidentified for any kind of capital project really as it relates to roads. So there are funds available there. Also in MVH restricted, I'll mention those later years, 23 through 25. There's really no road projects that have been identified in those years. There's a couple capital projects we'll get to later, but there's kind of just a placeholder there right now, but there's not necessarily anything identified for that. So I just kind of want to point that out. So those two funds I really want to hit first because those are those operating, a majority of the town's operations are covered within those funds, at least on a civil level. So those kind of are, more so are what they are than when it kind of comes to, the capital projects, and some of these other funds that we're gonna get to. I'm just gonna briefly hit on some utility assumptions. Kind of already mentioned the revenues. The only, rate increase you'll see in this plan would be a 15% water rate increase for 2022. That was just a very, very rough estimate of what, I can't remember what the debt figure is, 3.9 million, I think.
We already approved those rates, and I think it was an average of 13.9, or, it was in that ballpark.
They're pretty close. Yeah. So that's what I've kind of.
That was a darn good calculation.
They're pretty rough, but got lucky. No. So that's what you'll see in the reports. Disbursements, they're just generally increasing at 3% at inflationary rates. The capital outlays, so the utilities have their own capital projects. You know, you've got your water tower project for water, and then you have your West Side Interceptor project for wastewater, as well as some treatment plant improvements that are kind of coming in the pipeline. But in addition to those, I would always recommend that the town takes advantage of its utility funds in order to pay for civil projects where a utility component is present. You know, you guys have just generally more control over those funds, so.
Those are home rule funds, one of the few.
Yeah, so might as well take advantage of those. So the next couple of funds, you have your, what I call your cumulative capital funds, as well as your TIF fund, a little different than your cumulative capital funds, but these funds are basically set to just accumulate funds in order to dish out capital improvements later. So a lot of these are kind of interchangeable, and they're your, or I shouldn't say interchangeable, but the purpose of the funds are very similar. You have your economic development income tax fund, you've got your casino fund, you've got park impact fees in there, you got your public safety fund. So these are funds where you guys receive a sizable amount of revenue every year. And in 1 year, those amounts might not be enough to provide the town with some kind of capital project, but you know, you give those funds a couple of years to build up, and you can do some pretty good improvements to the town. So these remaining funds, you know, we can kind of play with them a little bit more than we can the other funds that we've mentioned. You know, your general fund, your public works funds that I mentioned earlier, those are kind of your operating funds. Those things have to be taken care of. Yeah, we can change things here and there, but if we do so, we need to make sure we adjust somewhere else as well. Here we've got a little bit of wiggle room where we can, you know, push things off or push things forward, just kind of depending on what funds are actually available at the time. So I think that covers those funds. The one thing I do want to mention would be your CCD fund. I've kind of used that fund. That is going to be a fund that's going to essentially replace all of the town's equipment and vehicles over time. One of the schedules in your reports, like a capital equipment replacements plan, all of those amounts are payable from your CCD fund. So,
correct.
In an ideal world, you know, that's kind of how this will work out there.
The word "all" is a big word.
It is a big word, but that's how it's presented in this plan.
Okay.
The last one I kind of just want to touch on would be your TIF area. Disbursements out of this fund are typically to improve the TIF district or an area serving the TIF district. So this fund's been really helpful for the town in just getting various capital improvement projects done, and there's still a good amount of revenue coming in that's available for additional capital improvements. So some of those projects that we're going to talk about that get funded through some TIF funds, some TIF revenues, will be your ecosystem cleanup project. We're proposing that these about $1.5 million of cash is spent with a $3.5 million bond issue in order to really get that ecosystem project moving. Some other, you know, not as significant fundings that TIF will help provide would be for the Parish Avenue project, the school signalization project, the Morse Corridor project, and the Lakeshore Drive project. This next slide is basically the top half of the schedule you have in your report. It is a list of all of the civil projects that we have identified. This is probably not an all-inclusive list. I'm sure we can come up with other projects to put in here, but these are the ones at least that are presented in this plan. Most are just road improvement projects or, various road expansion and projects, I guess, just, increase your flow of traffic. The special projects down below, I kind of want to touch on these. I mentioned the ecosystem cleanup project. So we're proposing that the town spends about $5.5 million total on that project. And those funds come from stormwater funds, which are paying for the preliminary engineering right now. And then later will come from some edit funds, some economic development funds, as well as some TIF cash and then the bond. The other item that's included here is just an illustrative bond-funded project.
Can I ask a question about the eco project?
Sure.
The $5 million, that will be money that comes out of the town, not counting money that will be raised, or will that also be counting the money that will be raised, that we will get from other sources?
So, out of the ecosystem project, you've got a schedule in there. I can't remember what page it is.
Ralph,
It kind
he's
of
only going over the town investments.
Yeah, this is just town.
We can't contemplate any other sources because they don't exist at this point.
That's right.
Okay. No, I was just wondering if he was looking at...
No, that's just what the town's budgeted,
Thought
projected
process.
investment could be based upon the calculations that their firm did of what we have capacity for.
Yeah.
Okay, I was...
Yeah. But there is a decent amount of cash that's being used there as well, but the majority of that $5.5 million is a $3.5 million bond issue. But yeah, this would all be from the town. I think I was kind of just touching on this illustrated bond-funded project. The only reason I put this in here is because I know the town has other projects that they need to do. They have other things that you guys want to take care of. So I put that in there, and there's an exhibit in the back of your report, I think it's Exhibit B, that kind of just gives you guys some ideas. I wish I would have put in this slide, but gives you guys kind of an idea of what a property tax-supported debt would do to the rate. In 2017, your rate was like 80 cents, 81 cents, somewhere in that ballpark. This year was 57 cents, 58 cents. You guys can actually issue a $2.5 million bond issue in 2023 and still only keep your rate at about 60 cents. And that's because your certified net assessed value has grown so rapidly.
That GO debt capacity is growing by what, about $250,000 a year?
Yeah, it's going about a quarter. So yeah, that's another good point. So this could be a GO bond. This could be a lease rental bond to avoid any debt limitations. But yes, currently your growth, because your certified net assessed value is growing about 8% a year. You're getting about another $250,000 of bonding capacity available to the town. So you really only have one bond that's counting against your GO debt limit right now, and I think by 2027 that will all be all paid off. So
Good.
So I just kind of wanted to throw that in there as kind of an illustration to show you guys what that might look like. On the schedule that you have in your report, there will also be some utility projects and things down there that you can see. So I didn't put those on here, but they are in your report. The next slide. This is just basically the way that we've came up with a way to fund all these projects. A lot of these projects are paid for with TIF funds, grant funds. You see the debt-funded projects, and then you've got your capital improvement projects, which, when you look at this, is actually a fairly small piece of all this, and I just kind of wanted to point that out. You do get a lot of these capital and cumulative revenues, but you know, it's really only enough to pay for one of these whole projects or so. Majority of these projects are gonna be paid out of TIF funds, grant funds received, or they're gonna need to be debt funded. And I kinda wanted to show this again as well because, you know, some of these projects are gonna have other utility components that we've not identified in this plan. So when things like, you know, hey, there's a water component to this project, we didn't allocate any water funds to that in the sustainability plan. Okay, well, you know, what fund does that help alleviate in the sustainability plan? Well, now you have those funds available. So that's just kind of my hope and my purpose of these capital projects that are included in here, that you guys have the details behind those, and when things kind of arise, and things change, you know where the benefit or negative is. On the next slide, so I kind of mentioned on that slide that we looked earlier, we had the total cash balances, kind of why that total cash kind of seems to yo-yo back and forth, and this is kind of a visual representation of that. That green would be your debt or grant-funded projects, then that orange color would be the piece that the town needs to come up with. You know, it says cash-funded civil projects, and, you know, that it doesn't have to necessarily be funded with civil funds. You can use utility funds when they're, again, when a component of those utilities is there. But that's the amount that the town will really need to come up with itself, one way or another. We kind of skip over this. It's just kind of the same slide again. The last things I really want to talk about are what aren't in this report. And they'll probably play a big role in kind of our discussions going forward when we talk about this plan. Nowhere in there will you find any mention of or uses for the ARP fund. You know, when we started this thing, we didn't even know that was going to happen yet. And I think as we kind of kept moving forward, you know, let's just leave that aside, and, you know, when push comes to shove and we need some money to do something, you know, we can go look at those ARP funds, or if you guys want to just reimburse yourselves for losses or whatever it may be, want to make sure that option's still out there as well. So that's why we didn't include anything in there. Another big project that I know that you guys have had on your radar would be improvements to your public safety and town hall facilities. So, you know, I put that illustrative bond issue project in there that would be supported by property taxes. You know,
Where's that at? Can you tell us exactly where that's at?
yes.
I'm gonna ask that question.
The illustrative GO, you'll see it on the project schedule, capital project, or capital improvements plan. I think it'll be like page 14 or so maybe. But if you want to look at its effects on property tax rate, there's an exhibit B back there, in the very back, or not very back, but towards the back where you can see it. There's really not a lot of information talked about that. There's also a write-up section on what exactly that is. I think it's a 10-year deal, beginning in 2023 with a 3% rate. So, that's kind of what's presented in there. There's no, you know, real use explained in there for it, but, you know, you guys have projects.
What was the total of the possibility of that?
Yeah. 2.5 million.
And then the eco restoration is 5 million?
5.5 million, yes. And the last thing that I just wanted to mention that's not in here, and I think I heard it discussed earlier, was the phase 2 of the West Side Interceptor project. That's going to be a substantial project that will likely need a rate study and its own all kinds of analysis there. So I didn't want to go ahead and start making any assumptions there regarding that. I was going to kind of just let Sue handle that, because a lot of what I'm presenting in here is going to change based upon what happens there. So that was the reason we left that out. So that was a lot of information, but I really, like I said, I just wanted to cover the kind of the key items that are in here. You know, I'm sure there's even key things that I forgot to mention, because there's just so much in here, but take it, digest it, in the future, whether it's a special meeting, council meeting, whatever we wanna do, we can really get into the details. If we wanna start allocating ARP funds, get those incorporated in this, we can do that. 'Cause as I mentioned before, this is a report that we can say, hey, we want 6% increases for the fire, or for the public safety officers. What does that look like? We
You
can do all
see
this.
the picture.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Tim, can you hit the lights, please? Anybody in the council have any, questions for Mr. Thompson?
No, I think, I like the way that you put the PowerPoint together and then kept the data separate, so
Yeah.
with the exhibits and stuff, it's fairly straightforward, so thank you.
This is, this
awesome.
report was a product of what we, adopted as strategic objectives a while ago. And we had kind of outlined some of our priorities in those objectives without really having this tool to understand how to fulfill those priorities. It's a difficult undertaking to be able to really tackle things in such a fast-paced growing community. I had a conference call with Corby and Buzz last week. Was it Thursday or Wednesday?
I think it was Wednesday.
Okay. And there's some ideas that have been presented to us over the years, some of the things that we've learned at AIM conferences as well, about quality of place, and about how to actually execute big projects. Attending these roundtable sessions and educational sessions, things do sink in over time where you develop relationships with other communities and learn how people can accomplish these things that you might think are impossible. And so I've kind of formulated a list of really 4 things in a project agenda. Some of it was touched on in the sustainability report, but this goes into just a little more detail based on things that have been talked about here. Residents have brought us these things, stuff that we've learned as we've canvassed communities during campaigns about what the community needs and wants, and also things that we've talked to our department heads about relating to their needs for continued service. So I'm just going to kind of go through this outline. After I do this for the next council meeting, I'm going to put together something a little more detailed actually for the council to consider adopting an actual plan with action items attached to it. So unlike many things that come in front of government to die, we want these things to come in front of government for action and that we actually get them done. So I'll start with the neighborhood reconstructions. Is something that was started several years ago, where there's been stormwater installed and new streets with curb and gutter in some of these old neighborhoods. And you need to really look no further than when you drive down Moore Street here and look to the east at some of those dead-end streets, and you see that while you drive on Moore Street and it's very nice and smooth, the roads that go to the people's residences who've been longtime taxpayers are the surface of the moon. And it's really shameful to be in a growing community like this and not address those things. So part of that, the formulations and what's talked about in the sustainability report is finding ways to, through the proper issuances of bonds and utilization of our increasing debt limit and revenues to support it, that I believe that we're going to have an opportunity to knock off more of these reconstruction projects than what we thought we could, now that we can see how the growth is impacting that capacity. Before it was, we had to wait till one rolled off to do another one. And that wasn't always sustainable, because then by the time we get to the next one, we have another 3 that just popped up.
Deteriorated.
Right, so this is getting a little more aggressive on that and utilizing some of that capacity that's created by growth. New municipal complex, and I know Todd, kind of chimed in with that. Don't think that it's just going to be a small project, because what we really need to look at here is a town hall, a fire station, and police station. So municipal complex, the public works is not forgotten either. Currently, that is part of discussions of another potential project. If that project does not come to fruition, then obviously, the growth of public works will have to be considered as part of that municipal complex. Now, in working with our, consultant Veritas group and attending AIM roundtables, there's been talk of an old Indiana statute. It's a 20-year-old statute that's really started to take shape as far as for these sorts of municipal projects. It's called Build, Operate, Transfer. And Veritas is very good with these sorts of projects, and it's Indiana, what's the statute there? Find it. I want to say it's 523. I think that's what it was.
It's Title V, right?
Yeah, Title V, I think it was Section 23. But that, we also have at our disposal a town building corporation that can be used for lease rental financing that gives us a heck of a lot more financial flexibility, not limited by our GO debt capacity. So utilizing build, operate, transfer, and possibly the lease rental is a great way to get a big project done without having the downward pressure of some of the general obligation stuff that would be balanced directly against property taxes. So that's something that that Todd and Bill and everyone that I've really identified as we need to immediately put together a working group that includes our financial advisor, our attorney, our department heads, some council representation, and get our consultant Veritas group to help us execute this build, operate, transfer to put the first principal foundational pieces in place, which is really getting the financial wheels rolling. But then we've got to get a design of a complex, a location, and get our feet on the ground in this thing fairly quickly. I mean, this town hall has served its purpose, but we are busting apart here when it rains heavy. Bill has the Ohio River carving its way through the police station, and we know that Chief Wilkening has experienced quite a bit of deterioration of the fire department over the last decade, and it's not going to magically get better. So these are absolutely needed projects to sustain the services, the essential services of the town. This is not about building the Taj Mahal to government. This is about putting together something that serves the citizens for the next 50 years. Next thing was the Lake Eco restoration. This was touched on as well in the sustainability report, with the possibility of using the ARP funds for a portion of that for the stormwater or tourism part of it. We still need more guidance.
Yep.
That in combination with TIF. And then as Ralph touched on, once we do have that project budget, which we've talked about, which we kind of have in here now at $5.5 million, although the engineers want $7.5 million.
Right.
Maybe there is that opportunity now to actually take those next action steps,
A fundraise.
not just to fundraise, but to lock in the project.
Mhm.
So if we know we can do 5.5, okay, we can lock in a project.
That's right,
And it doesn't have to wait till next year.
that's right.
It doesn't have to wait till 6 months from now. We can engage the engineers right now and get this project moving. It's time to stop talking about it.
That's right, actually.
It's been 20-plus years in the making, probably 25-plus years in the making.
Probably, yeah.
And now that the growth of the community has allowed us this flexibility financially to do it, it is past time to put it into gear and stop talking about it and get our working group bringing us a consideration. And that working group also needs to be brought in with Corby and Buzz in it to make sure that we organize the financing and that when we lock in this project, we are ready to put those
Shovels in the
machines
ground.
in the ground and start moving some actual dirt.
Yeah.
So let's get motivated and
Yeah.
move on this. This project shouldn't take another 10 years. It shouldn't take
That's right.
another 2 years. So let's get it going immediately. Park and recreation. This is an area of our community that has lagged behind. Part of what happened here 10 years ago was somewhat out of necessity as the community was going through some pretty tough financial times at that time, and there wasn't the capacity and flexibility that we would have liked to really invest in the type of park and recreation this community deserves. It was developed as a resort community, and people came here to enjoy nature, enjoy the outdoors, and this is an area that we have severely lacked. And through the budget process coming up, I talked to Corby and Buzz about this, is one of the best ways that we can financially establish a real parks department is by actually reestablishing a park board. So this would, the goal would be is to have the department be as general fund neutral as possible, and through the utilization of debt capacity and taxing ability of a park board, we can get some rehabilitation of current park inventory taken care of. We can tackle that Founder's Creek corridor, and then there's a bigger project that people have come here and talked about in public comment. And again, these are just ideas, okay? So there's no bulldozers outside, there's no deals been made, these are ideas, this is a conversation. An athletic complex is needed in this community. The Cedar Lake Little League and softball have far outgrown their facilities. Kids leave this town to play baseball, softball, football, soccer, because we don't have that kind of identifiable hallmark athletic complex. And the town owns 114 acres along a Parish Avenue, that part of it would be dedicated to dredgings of the lake, but another part of it could easily be converted into a partnership that would include the town, possibly the Little League and other leagues, softball, and maybe some private partners as well that would have some interest in helping us to build and operate that facility, and work through our park board and park department as well as part of that funding mechanism. So there's an opportunity here, I think, to really create an identity in our community, and athletic fields like that and the park and recreation investment helps to create the quality of place that will help people to identify Cedar Lake as a hometown, as a place that they want to not just raise their kids, but their kids want to come back and raise their kids. One of the struggles of communities like ours is as we grow, we're going to hit that point where the growth slows down, and then we need to depend on those residents to actually come back here and invest in the community and not have that brain drain. So I believe that projects like that from the park and recreation side would definitely serve to create that quality of place that could attract and retain families in this community as our growth starts to slow down, that we continue to have folks here that are investing in the community. So those are really the four main pillars of the ideas that have kind of accumulated over the years here, and also things that we've learned at AIM conferences and learned from other communities. So I wanted to make sure that with this sustainability report, we put out something a little more detailed of action steps are now. This is not just talk. We have a short window of time that is our time. This is our time. 10 years from now, it may look totally different, but if we do it right now, then for the next 40 or 50 years, we have a foundation built that people can grow from. And then we've done our job in the seats that we occupy to make sure that we've left it better than we found it. So I'm going to put together some consideration items on the agenda to kind of adopt a plan like this. If there's any input anybody wants to give into this, please do. I want this to be collaborative, but I don't want it to be death by committee. I want it to be action-oriented, people ready to work and sweat and make these things become a reality. We don't need to wait any longer. It's time to go. This sustainability report supports that. It's going to take some very responsible planning and work by our financial advisors, but also the action from everybody that works with, for the town, and lives here. So that was my little presentation of making the sustainability report something tangible that the community can benefit from for a long time. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Next, we have town council reports. I'm sorry, I want to go back to sustainability plan. We do have this as an agenda item with a motion and second. So we'll go through that. Is there a motion to accept that sustainability plan as submitted?
I'd
By-
like to make a motion to defer it to the next meeting since it was just laid in front of me and I haven't looked at it.
So motion to defer by Mr. Carnahan. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions or discussion on the motion to defer? Roll call?
Robert Carnahan?
Yes.
John Foreman?
No.
Julie Rivera?
No.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
No.
Randy Neimeyer?
No. Motion fails. Is there another motion on the sustainability plan?
Yeah, I would say this is more, this is something that we directed and asked our consultants to work on months ago. While we got all the formal details here, it's
Well, there's a
something
lot
we
to
asked them to
digest.
do, and there's a lot to digest. It's gonna be something that we're gonna have to keep with us and refer back to for months ahead. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the sustainability plan as presented by, Cronin Associates and specifically Mr. Corby Thompson.
Motion by Mr. Foreman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivera. Questions or discussion? Corby, again, thank you to you and Buzz and the team there and on the tremendous work. It's been quite an effort to put it together, and it's definitely going to be an extremely useful tool for us. And I hope that it helps guide us for many years to come, and we continue to take on these efforts every couple of years to update it and make sure that we're on the right path.
Yeah, very easy working with you guys.
Thank
It
you.
made my job a lot easier.
Yeah, you guys have been absolutely fabulous for the town.
Is Buzz his real name?
It's Otto.
Otto?
If you were
Keep
named
saying
Otto,
Buzz, and I'm like, well,
That's my grandpa's name either.
if you were
It's
named
Buzz.
Otto, you'd be called Buzz.
Everybody
Those
knows
were
him as
grandpa's-
Buzz.
that's his
Yeah.
nickname.
You can't spell it frontwards or backwards.
And Corby's right about that. It's his brand more than his name, right? Okay, we have a motion and second. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan?
No.
John Foreman?
Yes.
Julie Rivera?
Yes.
Ralph Miller?
Yes.
Richard Sharp?
Yes.
Randy Neimeyer?
Yes, motion carries 5-1. Now we'll go to town council reports. Bob, the floor is yours.
I already spoke.
Okay.
I'd like to just say that I've been getting a lot of people calling me, hey, there's a dog, what do I do with the dog? Hey, there's plates on cars, the cars are sitting here, this has been sitting here for a year, 2 years. Chief Fisher, I've been bugging the heck out of you lately. Mr. Rick, I've been bugging the heck out of you. I think we need to continue to keep our eye on the ball, and I think there's a short-term plan, if I'm not mistaken, Rick, for the Lake County, partnering with the county for the animal control, or?
They sent us a contract and all that. I'll refer to Mr. Austin to comment on what they sent us. It was unsolicited by us.
Okay.
It's wholly inappropriate to be considered by Cedar Lake to enter into the contract they tendered.
Is that right?
Wholly inappropriate.
In what way?
They require you to indemnify them from anything and everything they do. They don't guarantee anything in return for that. This is the second time I've received the same contract from a different attorney on behalf of the Lake County Sheriff, I think. Maybe Lake County Commissioners, I don't know.
So you're not advising us to engage it? What about redlining it? Marking it up and saying, will
Well,
you
we've done
accept
that before too, but we could do it again.
it? Yeah. It's an interesting dilemma. I mean, we're lucky because a lot of people get on Facebook and find the home, but in the event they're strays, what do we do?
Mr. Foreman, if you guys are able to, come up to some agreement, I, went and spoke with Margot about how much money the town spent over the 4 years that we were under contract with them. On the average, I think it was somewhere near $50 to $100, per month, for, animal turn-ins. The most we ever cut was about $1,800, and that was for over, I think a two or three quarter, period. We have nonstop calls on this, and just saying that the contract's is not good, which I can respect that, doesn't help us. We have to figure a way out to do something. We don't, to have our own animal shelter is just senseless. It costs us way too much money. So whether we have to figure out a different contract with them, an ability for the citizens like we had last time to come in, provide their driver's license, get a copy of this report that we give them, and they could take the animal straight to LA County Animal Control. So we gotta come up with something, because the amount of calls we get is insane.
And other communities are partnered with them. I would like to see this on the next agenda. Rick, if you could circulate the contract to all of us. I saw it, but I'd like everyone else to see it. And we can try it for a year, and if it doesn't work out, if the costs are out of control and we feel like it's unfair, well, then we'll have a year to come up with something else. But I don't see another way, like you said, Bill, to have our own animal control would
It would
not
cost
work,
way too
and
much
to
money.
partner
Everything
with
we talked
another,
about it.
yeah, to partner
I
with
mean-
another community, I mean, that would just, could take us months and months to come up with a contract. So from what I've been told, those contracts went out to all the communities at once. You know, it's unfortunate that that no one came here to talk to us about it, but, it's just, you know.
Julie, is it a
In talking
January to
with-
January contract, or is it once you sign it, you're 1 year
I don't think
deal?
it's January to January. I'm not sure why.
I know they
did
sent them out in a blanket form.
Okay.
When I talked to Animal Control, they said they sent it to us, and, I said, I don't remember seeing something, so I talked to Rick, he didn't remember seeing something. It sounds like they just sent it in blanket form to every town attorney for every community to see if they'd sign it and send it back.
I actually sent it over here. When
Yeah,
I got
Dave
it, I
to
sent
me
it.
when he got it, so I did
Absolutely.
see it. And I saw what Dave was talking about, the language in there that requires us to indemnify them against anything. I'm not sure about the cost necessarily, although I will say that I reached out to Lowell's town manager to see if there was an opportunity to partner with Lowell, and they don't have their own animal control system. They got out of the county agreement because in his words, it was too expensive. So he's looking for a solution as well. I didn't know the numbers that Bill just cited, but, it was really more of just that, Julie, it was such a one-sided contract. And from what I understand, I don't think there's an opportunity to change it. But
Maybe there's an opportunity here, though, if we have to do something with the county temporarily, that, Julie could maybe contact the folks at Lowell, kind of take ownership of this as an opportunity to create a partnership, see if there is something in there that through scale and proximity would be financially beneficial and contractually beneficial for the two communities. But in the meantime, maybe looking at that county is, okay, we gotta grit our teeth and get through it for a little while. That might be a good resolution, as long as we're working towards a permanent resolution.
yeah, I don't know if
But
there's an
Lowell doesn't
opportunity
have anything.
for that contract to be short-term. I don't remember the terms of it. If it was an annual contract, I don't recall that for certain, but
We'll have to review that, because whatever the term of it is, do you remember what the term of it is, Dave?
1 year.
1 year, yeah, so 1 year contract. So if within that year, we can, like I say, grit our teeth and sign something we don't like in order to work towards something that might be more beneficial, that might be a good thing. Would you agree with that, Julie?
I would agree, but partnering with Lowell, when Lowell does not have their own animal control.
Right, but then the two communities come together to pool resources to create an entity.
Okay.
So you're partnering with the community on creating something, not dovetailing and segueing off of something that's already there.
Where is county animal control? At the government center?
Right next to the government center.
Is that right?
It's
Right by the roundabout.
basically between the juvenile center and the county sheriff's office, so. It's a very small building near the roundabout.
Cedar Lake and Lowell are both
Do you know where
growing
you're going to
quickly,
take
so
people for
Yeah.
booking?
it might be good
It's
for
right there.
both communities to talk about that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, just with more and more people moving here, Yeah.
We just have to have something. We've tried a bunch of different things over the years. We had it down at the Public Works, that didn't work out very well. And we were with county for a short period of time, I think it was about 3 or 4 years. I think it was $25 an animal that they had to charge. We charged $25 an animal or something like that. I wasn't part of the administration back then, so, but people were literally able to come and get a piece of paper from us, signed by us. We scanned their driver's license onto the document, took the cash, and then they were able to take that form right up to county and take that animal there. And it's a no-kill shelter, so.
Okay.
I might
Good
suggest
suggestion, yeah.
a better partnership opportunity might be the town of St. John, because they already have a facility. We'd have to help with another person. I know that the one person they have there doing it, she does it full-time, but would not be able to cover both towns. So we'd have to probably another vehicle sharing the shelter cost, including food, and another person. But they already have a facility, and it's a pretty good sized facility.
I got the vehicle.
What vehicle?
You know, an old fire truck.
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
put it
no.
on the ladder
No.
truck. Nice.
Ambulance.
Just put it on an old fire truck, let's make that animal control. So Julie, would you take some ownership of like
Sure.
exploring the partnership with either St. John or Lowell and looking at opportunities, but in the meantime, getting that contract on an agenda for consideration? Is that satisfactory to you?
That's what I would like.
Okay. Any other council reports? Town attorney?
No report.
Clerk treasurer?
Sorry. Council members, last month, we all received written communication via email from Chief Wilkening on a raise proposal for his staff. I have gone through his budget, working with my chief deputy. We've gone over his expenditure report and looked at many different things. Plain and simple, at this time, with the overtime being what it is, I don't see the proposed increase being feasible.
Yeah, I respect that, Jen. I think that I would like to see the Council Affairs Committee maybe read through, we just got the report tonight when we got here, and it was a surprise to me. I would have been thinking differently in the previous week or two, not knowing that this was somewhat the case. I do know that we had some folks on administrative leave which made a mandatory overtime for one of the departments, which, the fire department, which created a little bit of a bind, not to mention during those snowstorms and things. We got kind of slammed, so I just think it'd be good. I appreciate your efforts in putting this report together to explain what your thoughts are. I looked through it early on, right when I saw it, after the meeting started, or, the end of the utility, and I see the 2021 bi-week salary. Is that now, or, on the report, ordinance number 1379, the first page of the spreadsheet?
So what I shared with you.
Or is that in the future if the salaries went together?
So what I shared with you is the current salary ordinance, and then I also shared with you, the master salaries and wages schedule, as actually Corby put together for us. So you could see, because Corby actually did a really nice comparison of 2020 and 2021 salaries and wages.
Right.
So if you go to the second to last page, that's where I kind of combined everything together so that you could see it with, title, the proposed increase, what that additional percentage increase would be, and then I put out for you what the 2020 base salary estimates were, what the 2021 base salary estimates were, and then what that 2021 proposed salary change would do to it so that you could see what the increase would do.
So maybe, John, what's here right now is our first opportunity to utilize our sustainability report to find out what we can do.
Yes, sir, I can't
Right?
agree with you more.
So
Right, let's think
may-
about how
may-
we
maybe the
can, not
chief's
can't.
This is
proposal-
also the first time I've seen it.
Maybe the chief's proposal as it was presented to us, may not fit, but maybe there's something that will fit.
Right, and that's kind of what I'd like to ask the council affairs committee,
Absolutely.
let's say, glass half full, what can we do?
Let's get our heads in
We don't
the
wanna
game.
lose more people, that's a given,
I
we're trying our
agree- I
best
agree with that. We've
to
gotta
put
figure out,
Band-Aids on things, but we need to.
gotta figure out
approve
something.
I didn't have any issue splitting these numbers, doing partial now and partial later, but
Todd, I think there's an opportunity here, though, through what we consume tonight, to sit down and utilize this tool to find out just what the heck we can do.
I hope I'm at the table.
Why wouldn't you be?
I wasn't on this.
This was Jen's report that she did with the financial advisor and her people, so this was
This
based
was
upon
simply
what you
taking the
requested.
expenditure reports and putting it all together. This is,
But this
The
is,
factual
this is a
numbers.
recommendation not to move forward with it
Under
without
the
dialogue with me or the fire department.
Under the current proposal, chief.
And prior to the knowledge that we just got presented.
We all just got this report tonight from the clerk treasurer, just like you did, so we're consuming it tonight. But there's also an opportunity here with what else we consume to sit down and figure out what kind of flexibility we
I
have
would love to do that.
to address this.
Let's do that.
Okay? Let's be
Great.
proactive.
Yeah, I can't agree with that comment more.
Jen,
Sooner than
on
later.
board to sit down and work on this?
whatever you all wish.
Okay, let's coordinate, Rick, if you can kind of manage the coordination with, Corby and Chief Welkening, the Council Affairs Committee and the Clerk Treasurer, so we can get our heads on this and see if we can resolve, some of these issues as best we can.
Yeah, and I did have one question. I thought that Chief asked if he could not keep on or hire an additional full-timer and split that salary amongst the folks he had. Is that still on the table, or did that?
Well, that's what this report from Jen is based on.
Oh, okay.
Our overtime is very high due to a lot of factors, due to the loss of a paramedic firefighter that we had to cover for 8 to 10 weeks for him to get through, a new person to get through perf. Like you said, there was a tough one on this year, just like Public Works. Also, we had one person on administrative leave that was being paid full-time, and we had to cover his shifts as well. That's 2 people we were paying for.
Right.
Plus, I was off that week, we had to move Nick up into my position, plus the built-in overtime that's built into the actual, paramedics and firefighters, actual, and if you noticed over the years, the line items for overtime has shrunk, it hasn't gotten any bigger. So,
Bottom line is,
we have to get used to the fact that that numbers, if we're not gonna hire a massive amount of people, and after seeing that sustainability plan, we're talking about one person in the next 3 years, we are going to have to increase the overtime line item again.
Todd, that,
as well.
just because that's in that sustainability plan doesn't mean that that's how we've got to execute it. We can move
And
things
I
around.
understand that, but
We
that
can
was-
prioritize
I thought that was
things.
a pretty good study.
Well, it was
It
a
is
good,
a
it's
real
a good
good
study
study,
to use,
yeah.
and the one problem with some of these studies is that when people see it, they say, well, that's it, that's how it's gonna be.
True, and that's the way I took it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like that. This is a guide, this is a map. But on a map, as any map, there's a lot of different routes to get from point A to point B. So, we can be creative, we can look at things, but if we're using this as our guide, like we're gonna do in our Council Affairs Committee with you, we're gonna find the opportunities of things we can address and find ways to create opportunities through prioritization. So, this is going to be a good process, Chief, and we're gonna get some things done.
Okay. I'll let my folks know.
Thank you, and, appreciate the report, Jen, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other reports, Clerk Treasurer?
I have nothing else.
Town Manager?
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Director of Operations? Police Department?
Just 2 things. This Friday, we will have one of our recruits graduating from the police academy.
Awesome.
Officer Alexis Dills will be, on the road.
Is this our first female
It is
officer?
our first female.
Wow.
Right. The public will see our first female officer on the road, start beginning next Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it is. She's got a few things to, the weekend off since she's, been in the academy for 4 months.
I hope we get a lot more.
Yeah, so, and then she'll be on the road, so she's
Good.
pretty excited. We put her Class A together today, so. And then Lexipol's going really good. We're about halfway through our policy manual, so, on sections 11 and 12, so doing pretty good. I think the Board of Safety has about 60 policies to approve for this next meeting, so.
Light meeting. Fire department.
I got a few things. First of all, the township did, agree to buy a tanker for the fire department from, Midwest Fire Equipment for the cost of $252,000, right around there. Which I understand that the township's gonna be able to pay cash for. And, they're gonna the trustee's gonna drive up there and sit down with, the manufacturer. We recently sent 2 people down to look at the new ambulance that's being built, and it's pretty much right on schedule. It's a really nice unit. Guys are looking forward to getting that back and getting it in service, because we're really.
Where is down? St. Louis?
Missouri.
Yeah, it was bought from Ozark, right?
Yeah. So it's a nice facility, it really was, and like I said, I did not go, we sent our EMS division chief down there, so.
Yeah.
Like I said, the rig is very nice. There's couple things that we're able to, add to it because we were under budget on it, so, but the cost, just to let you guys know, the cost of materials for anything right now, as far as fire equipment is concerned, it's going through the roof, just like building construction, so just basic stuff that we need. Recently, we found we were doing inspections on our air pack masks, and we found a defect with the actual masks, that they're starting to split right where the regulator goes into the mouth. And we have 25 of those, no, we have 50 of those masks, so 30 air packs, and about 18 of them were split.
Was it a recall?
Well, we're trying to get Scott Air Pack to do a recall. It was actually brought to our attention by the New Jersey State Public Safety. They did a report on it, so we get dialogue on that, and we started inspecting our unit. You can't really see it if you're looking, you have to look really, really close to it, because the stress crack that's in there. And once you kind of put a light behind it, and you take a real good look at it, you can see it. We're hoping to get them warranted, because they're only a few years old, actually, some of the masks are. And, but currently the ones that are stress cracked are out of service, but does put us in a little bit of a bind as far as the masks are concerned. We have some people that are sharing masks now because of it. And hopefully we'll get that rectified soon.
What about the mask? If you get new ones, is the problem still there, or have
No,
they corrected it?
yeah, they're issuing a different style mask now. This is actually the generation prior mask than that's being used today. Our medics had another legitimate save the other day on a call that, subject was, we thought was not gonna make it, did, and, kudos to them again. This is happening on a pretty regular basis.
Wow.
The COVID calls have seemed to balance out a little bit. They're not as frequent as far as the calls we're getting for them, but we are still receiving COVID calls. Our policies, as well as the police departments, are, we've got about 70 to 70 of them done as well. We haven't distributed them to the whole commission yet, only the liaison to the fire department, that was appointed to the fire department from the Public Safety Commission. He has received some, and he's reviewing them as well. We're on track for probably a May, or a June 1st completion date on all of our new policies, which is amazing. There'll be about 180 total policies for the fire department, which is, we desperately need. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Written communication, building department report.
It's on page 71 of your packet, Mr. President, 98 permits issued for the year. Set the record in January, broke the record in March for a single month.
Here we go.
$23,141,000 and change in, residential/commercial value.
Soon.
So some of Corby's estimates in the, sustainability plan are very conservative.
There's
which
another
is-
conservative place.
Which is great, because then that gives us
Yep.
a chance to
That's what
tackle
you
things
want.
on a case-by-case basis with the real numbers.
If we keep that pace up, obviously, we're on pace for 400 units this year, and
Wow.
that's double what Corby has been assuming in his report.
Then we broke a record in 2020, and so it looks like we'll break another
Yeah,
record.
we were at nearly 300 in 2020.
289, I think.
282.
282.
400 more calls. Please, Corby, add those to your notes.
Well, thank you for that report, Rick. Christopher Burke report,
And they provide their,
Yeah.
written report as well.
it's just kind of an update of what they're involved in here.
And John, did you have an eco restoration update?
We received some
You're on the hot seat now, is that eco
analysis,
restoration?
Bob, for, we threw out a couple more ideas, rather than use the land that we thought would be the most suitable, that we've been discussing. And, the engineers came back to us in the past week and a half with good ideas, not a bad idea, but the overall cost of trying to do the dewatering facility in those locations would still not have the proper topography. And in the end, it would probably cost more, not to mention if we don't own the land, then you can't let that stuff sit there for a long period of time, especially if we needed to minimize the dollar amounts. So, our plan is, to get the committee back together, do a presentation here for the public, as to what we propose, Bob, so.
John, do you think that we could get?
Doug and I have been, Doug Spencer is one of the committee members, he and I have been, looking at some other technology too, and we've passed that on to the engineers, so yeah, I think that's good.
Do you think we can get a project for consideration of financing by July?
I think we can, Randy, we have, a plan already for the $5.5 million number.
Okay,
It's just not doing all of the areas we want to do, but they absolutely do not want to take less than 8 feet.
but if you can get the $5.5 million locked in,
Grow,
then it can grow
on the
from
end,
there.
that back end of the project, we may be able to keep the equipment out here another year.
Yeah.
That's our objective.
Okay.
President, so with regard to that and expediting that project process, do we need any formal approval of the state of Indiana, INDOT, or, I'm sorry.
IDEM?
IDNR.
Permitting is, yes, is needed.
Okay.
And
And are our engineers going to handle that?
they're handling all of that.
Do they have a timeline?
They do have a timeline, and they've
Can they
already
be
been
invited to a
engaged with
council meeting?
IDEM. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to get Jed in here at a council meeting, laying out the most recent proposal that we've been kicking around.
And they talked to
Okay, so-
DNR too.
They've already talked to IDEM and DNR.
Yeah, they talked to DNR.
Can they be invited to the next council meeting?
They absolutely can be.
Okay.
So we need to get a pro forma on a schedule, a time for submission of the permit, the amount of time DNR has to review and respond,
Okay.
the estimated time period for the permit issuance.
We gotta get everybody with a little fire under them.
While that's going on, probably in tandem will be the development of the specs for the project, so we can go to bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he has, the next phase of this project, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, it's essentially everything that
It is
Mr. Austin just laid out.
It is designed, yeah.
So maybe invite a representative to the next meeting to talk about those things,
Okay?
that Dave just talked about, so we can put together a plan on our agenda to act on the things that they bring us.
You got it.
You can get a whiteboard in here and
Yeah.
mark it
Yeah,
up.
we have it. All the committee members have it,
Okay.
the most recent.
Well, let's get them in front of the council so we can maybe urge this forward,
Okay.
get some things.
Yeah, in fact, they want to get out there and do studies this summer.
Good.
And we've kind
So we
of,
need to, yeah.
looked at a few of the other things that some of the committee members and myself have, stepped back
Yeah,
and wondered, like South Shore Golf Course, for
The
example.
time for ideas is waning,
Yeah,
the
it's-
time
it's
for
waning.
action is here.
It's here.
But bring them here so the rest of the council know what's
Yeah, absolutely,
going
Bob.
on.
We'll get it at the next meeting.
Let's get them at the next meeting and have that report, that discussion, and kind of give them some marching orders to say, we're ready to go.
That's right.
Well,
We're-
you need an engagement
Yeah.
also. that engagement is not
Yeah,
considered, much less approved yet.
yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I will connect with Jed and we will get it rolling.
Awesome.
Okay.
We go to public comments.
He's the engineer. They get strengths and slips and stuff. It's amazing.
I just wanted to mention that this last couple of weeks, there was a lot of hustle and bustle about that house on Moore Street, and they got cleaned up, that's great. The one on Parish was cleaned up like the next day. Was there something different with the two homes? Why we delayed on one, and then the town cleaned up the one off Parish?
I have no idea.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We had to knock it down pretty quickly because of structural damage, and we were in fear that people were gonna go back inside the home. So, we had to reach out to the town attorney and just protect the public from anybody going inside there. So, the center of the structure, and the fire chief can explain it more to you, but.
First of all, we didn't tear down the house on Morris.
No, I didn't.
It was already tore down.
Right.
So typically what happens is if the building suffered a devastating loss and the whole center of the house was sagging in, it was gonna collapse.
The one on
Yeah,
Parish.
so we decided to get it down on the ground as quick as possible after the fire because it was gonna collapse on somebody and we didn't want that to happen. So in the interest of public safety, that's what we did.
And the Morris address one was gonna be rectified pretty quickly, but somebody else bought the property, so.
Yeah, we were told a couple of months ago, I believe, that the property had sold and the new owner was going to take care of it. So we were trying to give them time to do it rather than use our resources. And then, it appeared that was not the case, so we started doing the work on cleaning it up. The former owner reached back out to us and said, please stop what you're doing, it has sold. The new owner will clean it up this week, and he was told that they had to have it cleaned up by the end of this week. And has more happened there?
Nothing was happening.
No.
And that was just ironic that those dumpsters were scheduled for 143rd that we used for the Parish house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah, those dumpsters were
Just one of
supposed to
those
use.
things that was
Yeah.
perfect.
Timing as well.
So we are trying to let this apparent new owner clean up the one on 143rd and Morris. If that doesn't happen by Friday, then we're gonna go out there and do it.
And
We're
then
not
do
giving them any.
the taxpayers, are we refunded then, like, is that put on the tax bill for the?
There'll be a lien.
tear down?
Yeah, there'll be a lien, yeah, we're ready to go with that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mary Joan. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Anything online, Jen?
No.
No other public comment? Well, I appreciate everybody's patience tonight and working, through the information with us, and, hopefully we see some exciting things getting started very soon. It's time to be motivated and work hard at setting that foundation, so, we'll see you all at our next public meeting on May the 4th at 7 PM. This meeting's adjourned.